You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now, your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Goku. We are finishing up our reading of the book Nationbuilding. I think it's been a great read. Drop a 1 in the chat or in the comment section if you think it's been a great read so far. If you've gotten ideas for how to go forward, for how to play your part towards true liberation, which is power, which is nationhood. You guys make sure to drop a 1 if that's how you feel. Before I get into this reading tonight, I want to remind everyone that this show, the Bitter Medicine Podcast, is part of the podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network, with more coming soon, that you are invited to tune into.
This is W.E.B with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the pro-Black perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron, on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, indeed. Make sure you're checking out all of those shows on KWAZ Radio. The content is worth it. Trust me. I put up a poll on the community tab for this YouTube channel. I want you guys to check that out. Where is it right now? Last I checked, the community tab. Let me check it right now. I put this poll up yesterday, asking, give me a second, pull this up. Put this poll up yesterday that asks, it was a question of the day, as a conscious Black equals African person, how do you like your conscious content to be presented? The first option was jokey, gimmicky, entertaining. The second option was dead serious. When the poll first went up, jokey, gimmicky, entertaining was winning. Now it's at a point where there's more votes on it. And again, you guys are listening. Make sure to go and add your vote too, because I put these polls up as a part of research, honestly. And if you look at it now, dead serious is markedly the winner right now. But it does say that someone thinks that, jokey, gimmicky, entertaining is how they like to have their content presented to them. So even though it might be, as far as this poll goes, if we want to look at this as a sample size, right? As this poll goes, it does say that people like the entertainment. And so, you got to give people what they want. You got to meet people where they are. And so I'll probably never go the complete jokey, gimmicky, entertaining way, but I'll probably now add elements of it just to keep it exciting. And I think I do that with the Shoot the Breeze episodes anyway. But you guys make sure to go vote on that poll. I'd like to use the outcome to direct further works that I do with the podcast. Again, thanks for being here. I appreciate y'all, man. The reading tonight is Nation Building. This is the last chapter. Last chapter is Sankofa, a conclusion and yet a beginning. To go back and bring it forward, right? I am thinking, as you know, this is a recorded episode tonight. I'm thinking about maybe even Thursday, maybe even as early as Thursday, of doing a live stream where we bring all our notes together from this past 12 weeks of reading this book, Sankofa. We bring our notes together and we really chop it up about the pros and the cons of what this book had to offer. If that's something you're interested in, type 1 in the chat. Right? 1 in the chat. If you type 1 in the chat, that will mean this Thursday, you're willing to bring your notes, right, and discuss, this complete work, the pros and the cons, what we can, what meat, so to speak, we can devour from this, and what bones, so to speak, we should just spit up. So you guys let me know, type 1 in the chat and let me know. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Sankofa, a conclusion and yet beginning. Sankofa, those institutions that form the nuclear core of the African nationalist movement flicker persistently, though somewhat dimly, like stars in the haze-enshrouded night skies of the worn asphalt centers of Eurocentric civilization. Our progressive movement away from those centers is a movement toward rebirth. The more spiritual, psychic, and socio-political distance we place between ourselves and the constrictive and debilitating grasp of Eurocentric civilization or culture, the more radiant those stars will appear. Their numbers and radiance increasing until the entire sky is filled with an interlocked web of rhythmic luminescence, eventually fusing into a firestorm of radiancy, the center of a renewed universe. African rebirth and redemption. The skies must be apparent that way to Nzinga, Dessalines, Nat, Harriet, Marcus, and Lumumba. The movement toward that African rebirth will be defined from within by the clarity of purpose and mission, and the conviction and competence of the several African-centered nationalist or Pan-Africanist institutions, both the leadership and constituencies, that comprise the physical and institutional infrastructure of the movement. It will be defined from without by the frantic but deadly resistance and virulent attack by agents and elements of the non-African centered white cultural hegemony. The movement today is part of the 3 millennial war being waged for the body and soul of Africa. The activists or builders of the movement have aggressively engaged our perennial enemies in a decisive battle for the mind and spirit of our people. It is in this battleground that we have survived, though under siege. It is on the terrain of mind and spirit where we must marshal our resources to retake the entire spectrum of our people's minds. This is the first, final, and determining effort of the age-old war. We must prevail here or perish. And I think we really gotta stress this to people. I really believe we need to start going out here, similar to what Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff do. We gotta go out here and we gotta pull people into organizations. We got to pull people, similar to the final call and, letting people know that there's a war. And what you got to do when you have these silent wars, because remember, there was a Cold War, also known as a silent war, that occurred in the world. A lot of people were just living their lives, not even paying attention to it. Sometimes you got to show people the signs of war. War is not always this thing that we see and we hear rumors of all the time. Bloodshed and, all these debts and all this type of stuff. Nah. We have to understand that. We got to get more of our people to understand that. We have to get more of our people to signal to see the signals of it. By the way, what signs, when talking about these covert wars, what signs do you think people should pick up on to understand that there's a war? What are the telltale signs you think folks should be picking up on to know that there is an actual war? Racism is not enough to say. What are the signs that you think people should see to know that there's a war going on? Put that in the comments or in the chat. All right. African Centered institutions must act as staging areas and the thrust to retake and hold the minds of our people. Those institutions include families, educational institutions, cultural arts organizations, publishing companies, economic cooperatives, health and legal service organizations, food and housing cooperatives, etc. Each of them must be well organized and focused so as to be maximally effective in this effort. The movement itself must take example from Nzinga's reconquest of Ndodo, from isolated bases in the interior. We must take examples from Yaa Asantewaa and Candace, or Kandaki, from Toussaint and Dessalines, from the Palmares. Hold on. Sorry, I had to sneeze. From the Palmares, from Shabaka and Pianki, from Amhos and Namer. Our efforts, if we are to succeed in this endeavor to redeem and rebuild African civilization, must be firmly grounded in history. We must recover and reconstruct African history as a chronology of indomitable will and inevitable triumph. We must additionally firmly anchor the movement in that fundamental African spiritual matrix that supersedes the hollow religious cultural credendum of our Arab and European tormentors. Access to that matrix will be gained through identification and substantive involvement with the reconstructive efforts of existing traditional spiritual cosmological systems, themselves only surviving fragments of the greater and original whole. Our efforts must be truly Pan-African, linking the sons and daughters of Africa throughout the world in nation building. Our success will be assured only if we link ourselves, our institutional infrastructures, in ideology and action. Alone and isolated, we risk death by fiscal, physical, or cultural spiritual termination. So right in there, you get an idea, if you didn't have any, of the signs of warfare, right? Or the slow and tortured death of assimilation and gradualist dissipation. Our collective actions, those securely anchored in history and spirituality and properly led and executed, will assume the character of the firestorm described above. The essence of our endeavor is a return to the very source of our being as a people in order to recover, reconstruct, reinvigorate, and reestablish the collective identity and presence of Africa in the world order. This is a movement for our ancestors and a movement for our children. This renewed African nationality must be grounded in its history and spirituality, energized by its culture and perpetuated by its institutions. This is Sankofa, returning from the chaos and perversity of white domination to the womb of our history in order to birth a new reality for African freedom, independence, and prosperity, and ultimately a world order consistent with the truth, justice, balance, propriety, harmony, reciprocity, and order of African humanity. That birth shall be occasioned by the fusing of innumerable institutional and individual energies into a singular collective, whole African nationality, heralding the end of this night-shaded era of our humiliation and confusion and the dawn of our new beginning. We will prevail. So this is one version that you'll see of the Sankofa symbol. This is a more simplified version. I actually like this one a lot. And under it says, it is not a taboo to go back and fetch what you forgot. It is not a taboo to go back and fetch what you forgot. So that's the end of that chapter. Had I been live, I would have been doing, had I been live, I would have been doing the live discussion on this work. So let's go back real quick while we're here. And let's just go through some things. Start at the beginning. Right? When we go back, so this book was Nationbuilding Theory and Practice in Afrikan Centered Education. It's by I think it's Agyei Akoto. If you guys have the proper pronunciation, you guys let me know. And it's from the Pan-African, what's it from again? The Pan-African World Institute in Washington, D.C. So that's something to look up to see how active that group is. The book is dedicated to the current and future generations of brothers and sisters, daughters and sons of Africa, who with courage, perception, and commitment have undertaken the mission of rebuilding African culture and civilization. To those who labor quietly and anonymously, but intensely and with true love, to recapture the minds, hearts, and souls of our children and our people, that we may together build a better world for ourselves, vindicate our ancestors, and rescue humanity. That's a good dedication, right? You see the dedications here. We see familiar names like Sibi, who we've talked about a number of times. We see Nation House and Watoto School that they've talked about a lot in this book. And what I really wanted to go over quickly before I shut this down. Yeah, there's going to be a short show tonight, and I knew it was going to be a short show. I didn't mind it because I think we could do with short shows sometimes. I want to go over this table of contents real quickly, and I'm doing this for you guys too, so that you guys could take note of what you thought was strong, you thought was a pro, what you thought was a con, meaning that something that we should, don't even bother with, get rid of. Let's go through this table of contents. So part 1 was the conceptual foundations. That involved culture and nation building, defining those things. Part 2 of part 1 was Afrikan Centered Education. As you remember, that was the build up. If you remember, we spent a few weeks building up to the actual curriculum, right? Right. We didn't get to that in part 3, in the second part of part 3 of paradigms, right? In part 2, we had interactions. We had nationhood or dependency. I think that was a powerful read as well. Afrocentricity was good. Ideological clarity, culture and standards of beauty, family, culture, and community, expectations. So if you take all those things together, right, you have a firm understanding. If the learner, right, or the person administrating this knowledge has a firm understanding of this section, and we can get a bunch of people in our communities to understand this section alone, we're well on our way. We're well on our way. And I want you guys to think about, so when we have this discussion, if you guys decide you want to have this discussion on the entire book, on the goods and points and the bad points, we need to have a discussion on putting out literature. We need to have a mechanism not dissimilar to what like I said, not dissimilar to what the Jehovah's Witnesses do. Put out pamphlets and stuff, because we need to really let people understand that war is being waged against you, and to push back against it, we need more knowledgeable people, more skillful people, more people dedicated to a nation. There's nations that war. If you have individuals going up against a war machine, you're going to get slaughtered, right? So this area here, nationhood of dependency, Afrocentricity, ideological clarity. That's an important one. We don't have a lot of clarity in the various parts of ideologies that we have. Pan-Africanism, Black nationalism. In fact, a lot of people don't even know the difference of Black nationalism versus Pan-Africanism versus Pan-African nationalism, etc. In fact, I have a paper. I think I'm going to go over that one day. You know, culture and standards of beauty. Do you know how many women we lose? How much people who would have been warriors on the battlefront we lose because of this lack of understanding of what standards of beauty we as African people are supposed to adhere to. You know, family, culture, and community. That's what it's about. Expectations. When you look at a young Black child, what expectations does this child have for his or herself? What expectations do we as a community have for our children? And yes, we're supposed to have expectations. I've heard, since I became a parent, I've heard people talk about, well, you don't want to put too much on kids. No, there's certain expectations. You must expect certain things from them, and they must expect certain things from you. So that's something that's important. So again, as you come up with your notes for this live stream discussion we're going to have on this book as a whole, make sure to write down notes for all of these things, and because you might have a particular POV, particular viewpoint of each of these things that differs from what was in the book. But together we might be able to flesh it out and to build it up into something that's just awesome. And then the next thing will be to find a way to get it out there to the people. Part 3 was the paradigms. Very important. That's when we actually got to the actual design of curriculum, right? Part 1 of Part 3 says notes on African Centered Pedagogy. Part 2 is towards an African Centered curriculum, right? That's when you get to the heart of, I guess, why most people are tuning into this book anyway, right? How to design this African-centered curriculum. Part 4 are the interactions, and there's many of them, right? There's at least 4 of them. Fathers in school, super important. We talked about that on Shoot the Breeze a couple weeks ago. There was a place, I think it was St. Louis, there was fights in this place in this school every day. And these Black men got together and went up in the school there and started to basically kind of police the school, and all that fighting and stuff stopped, and it was Black men who did it, right? I think it was St. Louis, or it could have been New Orleans, but it's one of those kinds of places there, right? We need to understand why fathers need to be in the school more. Collective responsibility. What is our collective responsibility? Family and achievement. What does that look like? Right? And then lastly, the section is nation building, a proactive response to national crisis. And that's the thing. I kind of like how he puts that. Because I think people will respond to a national crisis, right? And I think if you build your literature to that, you can do something. Remember, and by the way, it's not just Black folks who don't respond to things going on around them. Remember, we read a paper where they were talking about how the Polish were basically, the Polish and another white group were basically using Marcus Garvey's ideas of self-determination and group economics and back around Garvey's time, and if you remember in that paper, they talked about how like a lot of Polacks and stuff weren't really buying with Polacks and stuff like that. And then they had to start putting out literature saying, hey, listen, dummy, if you don't support the other Polak or Polish or whatever they call it, if you don't spend your money with those folks, with your own folks, you're going to lose out. Because everyone else is spending with everyone else. And those are white groups, right? Who I guess thought it was all gravy. You spend with who you want to spend with. That's how black folks look at it now. I have money, I spend it where I want to spend it. Understand that some of these groups didn't get it back in the day. So we're not like some dumb group or something like that. We just haven't gotten it yet. And by the way, it was Polish leadership that got them, that reached out to them and confirmed or reported to them that there was a national crisis for Polish people, and that you spending money, practicing group economics with your group is the way to go, right? So this is the problem that we're having. Our leaders and them aren't even pushing it, aren't being the examples of it. Imagine all of these people, speaking of jokey, gimmicky, entertaining nonsense, all these black folks who follow Tariq Nasheed, for example. You're watching Tariq Nasheed talk all this foolishness, ahistorical foolishness. You're listening to him do all this divisive stuff. You're giving him your funds and not realizing that this guy does all his business with white people. You're buying his music CDs, white producers, white engineers, a white boy dancing around in the videos, white guitarists and all kinds of stuff, right? Like you can't find black folks to do those things. You're listening to him talk about a museum where he's telling you he has white lawyers, right, out here doing his bidding, right? What's the point? What's the point of that? You see, and that's where the so-called leadership fails. And as a matter of fact, it shows us that we don't even have leadership. Because if we really had leadership, and again, this is why I shake my head looking at Farrakhan and them. If we really had leadership, a leader would come out and say, don't follow that foolishness over there. Go back in your history and look at Malcolm X versus MLK. And look at how Malcolm X was talking about the foolishness of what's the thing MLK them used to do again? Nonviolence. Malcolm didn't hold his tongue. He let people know you'll be a fool to go down there and get your ass whooped. Your face bloodied. Right? And yeah, I've heard people criticize Malcolm saying that he just talked. Well, at least he was talking some goddamn sense. So we don't even have leaders, really. We have people talking all the time. We have grifters talking all the time, enriching themselves off of our community. So then the last section of the book is what we just read earlier today, which was a good ending. Short but sweet. And so I'm going to invite you guys, well, you let me know, actually, if you want to have a further dissection of this book. If you want to have a further dissection of this book, you guys let me know, so that we can come through probably Thursday. Thursday's a good day. I know that's a day that I'm free for sure to sit down and have a live stream conversation. We could do a kind of a shoot the breeze of this book. Drop your comments in the chat. Let us know if you want to do this conversation, and you're going to bring your notes. So it's not just me talking. You're going to bring your notes, and we're going to further dissect this book. I want to remind you guys, too, that you can support KWAZ Radio. You can support the shows on the network through the KWAZ Radio merch store. Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I just wanted to jump on real quick and highlight a tweet made by the revolutionary matron of the Learning Curve podcast on KWAZ Radio. She says in this tweet, "Buy black and support KWAZ radio hosts. Buy a t-shirt today." You can go to t-shirtepiphanies.com/KWAZ-radio-merch. You can support all the hosts like Onitase from the Pro-Black Perspective, myself, Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, the Harsh Reality Podcast with W.E.B and L. Miguel, and last but not least, the revolutionary matron from the Learning Curve Podcast. And I just wanted to show you, also, you can look at and see some of the first shirts that we have here. We have a lot of size options for you guys to choose from. So make sure to go ahead and support each of these shows by purchasing a t-shirt today. The reality is that when you buy merchandise, support of one of your favorite shows on the network, you help to make that show even better, right? And by purchasing and wearing these t-shirts, you are showing people around you that you are included in the culture that we are creating at KWAZ Radio. All right? Buy it because you love what we're doing. Buy a t-shirt because you want to be a part of this thing that we're creating, right? And buy it because you want to show people that you feel united with the subject and the cause of the shows on KWAZ Radio. I'm Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast. You guys be good. Peace. Yes, indeed. As I understand it, we're going to get an official commercial for the merch store because a lot has been done since that tweet. There's a lot of color choices. There's more items like hoodies. There's mugs, etc. And again, this is where you get to show folks that you're supporting this movement called KWAZ Radio. This is where you get to help the shows out. You buy 2 hoodies or something from the Pro-Black Perspective part of the store. You help the Pro-Black Perspective put in more work to make his show better, right? To go down different avenues that improves engagement, that gets the word out, etc., etc. So you have the ability to help us out, and it's the holiday times coming up as well. Not that, Kwanzaa is coming up, so you have the opportunity to go and you could actually purchase Onitase's book if you want to for Kwanzaa. You can purchase a mug, a hoodie, a t-shirt, etc. Same for the Pro-Black Perspective, same for the Learning Curve. So yeah, this is the time to help the shows so that this new year coming we can be even better. And speaking of being better, KWAZ Radio is also trying to expand. Yes, we have a few shows. We have a small fan base, but through cross promotion with other folks who have YouTube channels, etc., who want to join the network, we can make this something really special for our folks. By the way, the website is coming the first part of the new year. Okay, the official website will drop the first part of the new year, if not day one, sometime early on there. So there's a call to action here to join KWAZ Radio.
Have you ever considered joining KWAZ Radio? Each of our hosts shares their unique perspective with you. You might have a perspective that needs to be shared. If that's true, hit us up at kwaz.radio@gmail.com. What are you gonna do? What you gonna do?
Yes, indeed. I was on the Pro Black Perspectives live stream on Sunday. I was in the audience, and this brother mentioned how in Africa, one of the problems is a lot of folks don't have data, so they won't be able to stream from YouTube so much, but they could download audio, which I thought was kind of a weird thing, I guess. Maybe I have it wrong. But do you guys think that's something worthwhile? Do you think, like we see some folks put together these libraries? Like I have the Bitter Medicine Library, the Pro Black Perspective has a library, and there's people who put these Google Drives, these massive Google Drives together with all these books and stuff. Do you think that's something that KWAZ Radio should do? You think we should have a Google Drive of audio from the shows that we do? And that Google Drive link can go out. People can share that across, say, the continent, for example, and have access to these episodes that way. Is that something you think is a good idea? Do you think, as a fan, I assume, of the Bitter Medicine podcast, do you think that's something that I should do? Let me know. I'm always interested in learning, strategizing, how to get the message out there, how to get more people in tune with what we're doing. The whole reason why KWAZ Radio was started really was to combat the nonsense from the grifters that we have out here, the Tone Talks, the Yvette Carnells, the Tariq Nasheeds, even Umar Johnson. So you guys let me know if that idea sounds like a move to make, where we have a Google Drive and we upload all the episodes there. Now that means that we don't monetize these YouTube videos and stuff, which the monetization of the YouTube videos would have been or would be a big help for us as well. But let us know, let me know if you think that's something that's worthwhile. Anyway, guys, that's been the show for tonight. I hope that you guys will want to discuss this book a little further. Let's talk about the pros and the cons during a live stream, preferably Thursday coming, not next Tuesday, because I'm still teaching at night on Tuesdays. I hope that you guys will also go to the community tab and tune into the community tab. By the way, when you click the bell for notifications, if you click, I think there's something like, I think it says something like all or something like that. If one of the options allows you to also be notified when I put stuff up on the community tab. If you guys can go to the community tab and vote on those polls that I have up there, particularly this last one, that'll be a great help, and I will appreciate you immensely, right? I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. I'll be back on Thursday with another reading, so look out for that. Until next time, guys, peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.